In 1971, the town installed town water and sewage. That was fine, except on one street, Jungle Queen Way, some of the people said, "We don't want town water." "Well, you gotta have it." "Well, why do we? We own the road." And they said, "Oh yeah, that's right, you do." "Well, you still gotta have it." They said, if we gotta have it, town, you pay us." "Well, what do you mean?" "Well, we own the road, we won't give you permission." So the town said, "All right, we'll pay you." So the town paid some residents of Longboat, of Jungle Green Way, for the right to put the water and sewage lines in.
Yeah, and everybody was at the time was forced to do it. I mean, everybody had well water, was pretty resigned to drinking well water, and had septic tanks already they paid for.
Oh boy.
Did you tell about Jungle Queen already?
Yeah.
Oh,
Why? What do you want to say?
Nothing.
No, that was, we were on Jungle Green Way, and Claire and I hired a lawyer and asked people to contribute to the legal fees, which they did, but 3 people said no, and we went ahead with it. And the reason it took so long was the town commission was mad at the Longboat Observer, and we lived on Jungle Green Way, and so they put a thorn in, they put a monkey wrench in the works for a couple of years. "Oh, do it yourself, do it yourself." Finally, the town decided, hey, it's a town road, we'll do it. So that's what happened. In '74, transfer of density came along. Transfer of density was, what's his name? Anyway, a guy, the rec center was proposed, and yeah, oh God, I won't go into that. That's so detailed. But it was turned down, of course, by our town commissioners. And the transfer of density, I think it was Ansel.
Jerry Ansel.
Jerry Ansel was a very well-to-do film producer, and he owned a hunk of land there, a big hunk of land. And he said, "I'll tell you what, it's on the Gulf side. If you'll let me build
higher on the...
If you'll let me build this density, and let's say it's 100 units on the land that I own, I'll transfer some of it to the Gulf, and I'll give this land to the town.
That way I can build my condo
Then I
higher.
can build my condo higher. Of course, the town turned that one down. And then a few years later, it came along again, and I think Ansel gave the, I don't know. Anyway, the town spent quite a few $1 million when they could have had it free. But that's all, yeah. In '76, we had a bicentennial parade, Broadway to Town Hall. That was quite a party. In '78, the Longboat Observer started with 4 pages. And that was the time when the town took off. All these big high rises.
Now, you were the originator of the Longboat Key Observer. That was the first paper that was named the Observer.
Right.
The Longboat Observer.
Longboat Observer.
Yeah, we sure did. '78. And we went through the first year with no employees. We had 4 pages. We were mighty proud of the 4 pages. We tried to find advertisers.
And before that, they had the Gulf Gale or something,
Oh, yeah,
and then the
Whitney
Longboat
boys had some.
Keynotes.
It's all the history of newspapers is in this book too.
Uh-huh.
And I forget what they had the Whitney boys put out a mimeograph sheet.
And we have a copy of the first one that was donated by Ray Whitney.
Yeah, yeah. Oh boy. Oh, and then that's just, we're talking about the Observer started in '78, and the New Pass Bridge straight across approved by Longboat Key, but defeated by the county. I forget why. In 1980, the town's 25th anniversary of Publix opened. Boy. And then we had another transfer density fight in '81. And that was so vitriolic, and the Observer came out in favor of a transfer of density, and 2 or 3 commissioners really hated the Observer, They even boycotted the Observer. They had Publix put all the papers out because they didn't like the Observer. They didn't want to distribute it in Publix, believe it or not. So we finally got back in. In 1982, the water pipe under Longboat Pass broke.
Well, don't forget in 1980 you formed the Longboat Key Historical Society.
Oh yes, 1980 the historical.
You and my mother and
Right.
other people
Right.
and Patty Cobb and
Right.
Walter Mays. And
Yeah, we had a lot of fun in 1980. Oh,
we
boy.
used to meet right in this house, right at
where
this
we're
table,
sitting.
right?
My. So the water pipe under Longboat Pass broke, and the town used fire hoses to cross the bridge to supply water to the inhabitants of Longboat Key, because we had no connection with Sarasota County, and people scratch their heads and say, "Hey, maybe we ought to have a connection with Sarasota County." So about 20 years later, they did.
Well, now they have a really substantial, if you look up there, you can see how well that pipe is secured to the bridge, and
Yeah, oh,
they
yeah.
have stainless steel hangers,
Sure.
so that
So-
must have influenced them when they
What they did was they had a great big pipe from Manatee County over the bridge. It's still there, and you can see it as you pass under the bridge. That's our
Right.
that's our
All
water
that blue-
supply.
That blue.
Oh. And the funny thing about it, when they were discovering the water leak under the bridge, Longboat keeps pent down divers to see where it was and everything else. And the divers had to fight off manatees who went down there for the fresh water.
Yeah, and the
It was still
manatees and sharks. I've had divers who said that they were under the Cortez Bridge and they've never seen so many sharks in their whole life. And they've been diving all over the world. They said
Oh,
they
my
just,
God.
but it must have been just
Oh,
a
my.
rare coincidence.
And that was the time when St. Jude's Luncheon started by Herb Lovett. And in '83, the New Pass Bridge was stuck open. It was stuck open for almost a week. Claire and I were on vacation, fortunately, and to get across New Pass to go to Sarasota, you had to use a ferry boat.
Our daughter was left in charge.
Our daughter was left in charge. And sure enough, they used ferry boats. They rented everything they could to get people to cross. And I think for 2 or 3 days, they had no contact with Sarasota County. by
Well,
car.
it's funny living on an island. Kent Chetland said when he first came down here that they had the opening of the Cortez Bridge.
Right.
And that they had Ringling Circus, you know,
Oh,
people,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
not many people realized that in the old days that there were a lot of circus people that were connected
Sure.
to the circus and baseball players.
Oh, yes.
So those were two of the
Baseball players used to come up to the North End restaurant,
and drink over there at Millie's.
drink and eat
The
fried chicken.
broken reef.
Broken Reef, yeah. We have a picture of their fire there. Where's the deli? And then we had the Red Tide boat. In '83, there was in '78, Red Tide was pretty bad. One year it was so bad, that Sid Oakes, our commissioner, contacted Pat Neal, who was then in the legislature, and said, "Look, we got to do something about Red Tide. I just came back from Switzerland. They had a boat over there that picked up debris in Lake Louise or something.
Right.
And he says, we could use something like that here, couldn't we?" Pat says, "Yeah, let's see." So sure enough, they got one.
Well, sometimes during red tide, the fish will be blown up in these bayous, and
Yeah.
they'll be like 2-3 feet thick,
Yeah.
and just
And
solid
it was,
fish
yeah.
that are
That
rotting and
smelled,
stink.
yeah.
Right.
So they built this boat, and they had a tryout in, I forget where, in Manatee County, someplace, and it worked fine. It was great.
So we have about 5 minutes left. I mean, I'm just telling
Okay.
you for your benefit. You can just talk and go at your normal
And
rate, but I just
they
thought I'd
tried
tell
the
you.
boat out, and it worked fine. So they put it into service. Only the captain said, "No, I'm sorry, I won't, this is dangerous, it's not seaworthy." By God, it's not seaworthy. So they put it out of service, and they sent it to North, and they never used it. Oh,